So Wizards of the Coast has released the artwork for the new Dungeon Master screen, and as an illustrator and YouTuber and Dungeon Master, it is my sacred duty to compare and contrast and see how it measures up with previous editions right here on this channel by me, Toren Atkinson. Let's go! When they released the preview for the Player's Handbook 2024, I did a little video about the art of past and present cover art for Player's Handbook. And then when they released the information, the cover for the Dungeon Master's Guide and the Monster Manual, they did both of those. And I thought I was done. I thought that series was done. But then they released this preview for the new Dungeon Master screen. And I thought, well, I bet we better look at Dungeon Master screen, the history of Dungeon Master screens from then to now, and compare and contrast and see what makes a good Dungeon Master screen from an artist's point of view, from an art director's point of view, but also from a gamer's point of view. So here we go. This here is the very first Dungeon Master screen from 1979. It came in two parts, and it came with two different pieces of art. There's this, let me see if I can click through. This is the 1979 Dungeon Master screen for Advanced Dungeons & Dragons, with some beautiful art here by Erol Otus. Now, the philosophy here is quite different than what we're used to with 5th edition, and really anything past 2nd. Take a look here. You can see it's unfolded. And so you've got this art kind of in the middle, and then you also have room for information that the players might use in addition to the Dungeon Master. Like, for example, it looks like, if I had to guess what's on the left-hand side here, this is going to be equipment, and then experience levels for the other ones. So it's less about the art, but it's a different philosophy. We'll talk about that. This is the Dave Trampier art. When I first looked at this, I thought this is a really interesting illustration as an entire painting, and then I realized, it might be a composite of a bunch of artwork. I'm not 100% sure. And the reason I say that, compositionally, it's quite interesting. It's got, the big swoop here of the dragon and the army, and there's these different scenes. That's why I'm saying it's a montage, perhaps. But it also does, like, for example, like how the blackest blacks on this lady's face are not as black as the black from behind this knight fella here. So I think, I'm not sure, but I think it might be a bunch of different art put together. But I could be wrong. But it is striking. I think we can talk about the philosophies of what the art on the DM screen should do. For me, as a player and as a dungeon master, I think that it should be the POV of the players, and it should also entice the players to want to enter this imaginary world of fantasy. And I think that kind of does that. The dudes getting the treasure chest and finding a magic weapon is very much what you're gonna do as a player in first edition AD&D. And then, of course, you can always have these huge battles of the lizardmen. So this is all very good. So let's move to 1985. This is actually not Advanced Dungeons & Dragons, but the philosophy of the design is very similar. You're seeing what you would see in the game store or on the racks of the department store, probably in shrink wrap. This is the front cover, and then this is the back cover in the middle, and then you probably wouldn't see again, we have the experience tables for the different classes. So the art, fantastic, probably repurposed from some other product, not sure. It's utilitarian. It's not about immersing yourself into the world. It's just This is like marketing. Like, I don't want to see any marketing information on the Dungeon Master screen, and that's something we can talk about in the later editions too. But so back then, and still to this day, quite often, the screens will come with some kind of an adventure. So as you can see, this one features an adventure for master level characters. Now we get into second edition. We're seeing the same design philosophy. It's got some art on it. It's got some rules on it. It's got the back page, which is just dreadful. You don't want to see a barcode when you're trying to immerse yourself into the world of Dungeons and Dragons. I'm against this, but again, this comes with The Terrible Trouble at Tregador by Gene and Bruce Rabe. I like the motion on this guy in the bottom. He's all twisted. First I was like, what's going on with his anatomy? And then I realized, oh, his body is facing his torso is. His chest is facing down. The rest of him is facing up. So you're seeing two dragons fight, which is, it's as an art piece, it's great. As part of a Dungeon Master screen, I'm not sure about that. Now we get into the setting specific. Finally, we've got some setting specific Dungeon Master screens, and we're seeing a different philosophy, which is, look at that Ravenloft. It's just Ravenloft. That's all you get. And you get the mist. And Ravenloft is famous for its mist. So you're getting those mists. So it's kind of, it's certainly not distracting. Whereas the Planescape one on the bottom is more stylistic. It's evocative. It's just got the Lady of Pain down here in the middle. And then the rest is just mood. It's mood, really. It's an aesthetic. It's like a rusty wall of some kind. It reminds me of like those old Dave McKean. Am I thinking of the right artist? Comic book artist. But I want to talk about this Dark Sun one. Here we can see the Dark Sun. Again, we're seeing these. I'm not sure if not having the screen, but they're looking like. Let me flip back to a second. It's looking like these panels, the 4 panels, are horizontal. Portrait mode, right? So these would be very tall Dungeon Master screens, which some people like. They like to hide behind their screen, whereas other people like to have it flatter so they can see what's on the table. That's completely just practical. This Dark Sun, I think, is great because it shows you the world. You could be there. You might. It's got different elements. The lightning on the left hand side is great. This wall, it gives a little bit of depth. It's not super evocative. It's got a crumbling ruin and all these old vines. This is pretty great. I feel like it shows you the world. It gives you the ambiance of Dark Sun, of the burnt world of Athos. And the strange creatures that you're likely to see. I think the only thing that is missing is like it needs a big old... Here, I would just put in some. I do like the old... Put in some kind of skeleton, like with horns or something. That's the only thing I would add to make this even more evocative. Because this panel is like, there's nothing going on there. All right, let's talk about 3rd edition. We're finally here. We see that 3rd edition aesthetic of having the book border around the edges. So then this is kind of like merging the two styles, because if you recall, the Dungeon Master Guide, the Monster Manual, the Player's Handbook, they're all made to look like books that you would find in the game if you like found a Wizard's Tome or whatever, which I thought was brilliant, totally immersive, meta almost. Whereas this one is like, it's got the frame of a real book, but then it's got the traditional kind of D&D art, which we can look at now. And so now gone are complete. We will never see again any stats or any numbers on the outside of a character sheet, which I think is good. It's probably good. Again, it's a kind of a montage of different scenes. This is Jeff Easley. This is using the kind of the iconic characters that they put in the 3rd edition. I can't remember all their names, but we had the elf. Was that a sorcerer? I can't remember. But these are all kind of like individual vignettes. You can imagine, you can actually see where the dividing parts of the panels are, and kind of for each frame, there's something going on that's self-contained. So anyone from any of the players, no matter where you're sitting at the table, you're going to be seeing something that's kind of like evocative of what Dungeons and Dragons is. Now we're getting into, me personally, I don't want to see other people's player characters on the Dungeon Master screen. I want to see the world. I want it to try to pull me in. And in a sense, you might look at these characters, oh, that's a cool character. I want my character to be like that. Or maybe I want to meet this person. But for me, this is great. This is wonderful art. It's cohesive. It's imaginative. It's not, because it's kind of a montage, it's a little bit disjointed in terms of like, if you're looking at it from a whole, but you're probably not looking at it from a whole, as a whole. Maybe you are looking at it from a whole. Yeah, so 4 panels, what do you call it? A quadriptych, if you would. Let's move on. This is from 2002, the 3rd edition Encounters in Faerun. So again, this is a setting-specific or campaign-specific Dungeon Master screen. Now here, although there are 4 panels, there's only 3 scenes, because typically when you have your DM screen as a Dungeon Master, as I'm sure probably anybody watching this knows, the two panels in the front face out towards the table, and then the other ones kind of curl around the side of the Dungeon Master. So you'll have these. So this is kind of an interesting way to approach it, and I think it's kind of brilliant in a way. So the people on the side who are sitting close to the Dungeon Master, the only ones that are going to get a good look at these individual side drawings. I love the art style. It's very kind of, this is obviously Drizzt and his panther. I can't remember the panther's name. Drizzt Do'Urden, the dark elf. I especially love this one in the middle. It's very dark. It's very loose. It's very painterly. The colors are vibrant yet also rich. And I mean, look at this guy. Look at that. It's got a very Frank Frazetta aesthetic in terms of just the shadows and the energy that poses. So I like that. I think that some of these screens have scenes illustrated from the adventure that they come with, which is both brilliant and weird, because you're kind of killing 2 birds with 1 stone in a way, but you're also like, spoilers, you know, if you've got the screen, if you're running a game and there's scenes and you're just starting this adventure, and you can already see when are we going to meet that guy in this place. Yeah, but I love this artwork. This is 3.5 edition by you know him, you love him, Wayne Reynolds. Again, we got the triptych going here. We got the one big panel in the middle, which is obviously a pit fiend, a Baelor. I don't know what this is. A nasty demon. And we have these kind of stock adventurers who, again, as a player, I'm like, I don't know, who are those? Who are these guys? And when I looked at the description, I was like, is this supposed to be a 3-part? I think it is. Like, here's the adventures as they are arriving, right? Yes, these are the same characters. Here they are entering the dungeon. Here they are in the middle of the fight. And then, oops. It didn't go too well for them. They were underprepared. Wayne Reynolds, love his style. He always has such dynamic energy in the posing and the composition. And then he's got these super hard darks and lights, very high contrast. Yeah, I don't think I have anything more to say about that. This is Adam Rex from the Deluxe Dungeon Master Screen 2004. This is great. It's not super busy. It gives you a sense of not necessarily world, but you're entering a cavern, you're entering a dungeon. It's like Dungeons and Dragons. It's right here in front of you. Again, you can see where the panels are, and so you have again this kind of like this one composition in the middle. You got a second composition on the left hand side. Look at that! Check out this guy. What is he doing? Looking off to the side and sticking his tongue out. Like, what is he? I'm trying to figure out what he's looking at. Again, using the iconic characters from this is the half-orc from half-orc barbarian from the player's handbook, and then you have this. Here's the bad guys. So this is one composition and this is the challenge for the artist who's making these. You have to make these decisions. What am I going to put on each frame? I have to compose. I have to have 3 to 4 compositions within this artwork, depending on who's looking at it from what side. So, that's a huge challenge, obviously. And I think this one works very well. It's not overly complex. It's got nice values all the way through. And good stuff. Good work, Adam Rex. By the way, I'm gonna try to put links to all the artists and especially the ones that I didn't bother to look up beforehand, so you can take a look. This is the only one I could find for 4th edition. It might be the only DM screen for 4th edition. This is by Francis Tsai. And again, now you can see this is very clearly the panels it's a very wide and horizontal. Each panel is horizontally framed. Can you see the dividing lines in here? No. But you can guess. There are no player characters in this. They're all enemies, which I think if I was making a DM screen, that is the philosophy I would take. I would not put your heroes fighting the bad guys, because as a player, I want to be that hero. I want to fight these bad guys. So it's quite cool. It's basically a bunch of monsters, expertly rendered. It's interesting to see how it goes from like one color. One color on the left is kind of this ochreish, and then it goes to transitions to the red on the white. Good stuff. For 5th edition, there is a panoply, a host, a veritable cornucopia of Dungeon Master screens to choose from. A lot of them were licensed by Gameforce 9, Gameforce 5. Don't remember. But this one we're looking at is straight out of the box Wizards of the Coast. This is Craig Spearing. And this, again, we see the including the PCs in the scenario. This is not a slight to it at all, but it's kind of like generic 5th edition D&D art. It's very much on brand, which is we'll get to. It's not my preference. Let me put it that way. And we'll see some other stuff that as an artist I do prefer. But the cool thing about this is if you go to Craig's, there's a website where Craig talks about how he decided to make. Here's his rough thumbnails that he provided to the client Wizards of the Coast. You had to put everything on different layers because they want to use the artwork for different things in addition to this. So you can see all the different layers. You can also see here's this middle ground with the statues, and for that layer he hid the arm that's going down to the ground and instead put the dragon's talons coming around. So that's quite cool. How the sausage is made. This is 2019. This is Greg Rutkowski, and I think I prefer this style. It's a little more loose, but still pretty tight, but looser than the previous one. And I like how it shows more of the world. Again, it does have the player characters. And you know what I don't like is this. I don't want any logos. I know you want your branding, but I don't want any logos on my DM screen. My favorite part is this right hand side. It shows you the world. It's got nice color values. It kind of reminds me of Skyrim on the far right, the dragon landing on the top of the icebound mountain. Beautiful piece of work. I just noticed there's a little cat carrying a dead mouse. So that's a beautiful touch, probably from the druid, or maybe a ranger. Yeah, compositionally, what can you say? It draws the eye. It definitely draws the eye from right to left. I definitely feel like you're starting in this warmer half, and then following. The philosophy in art is usually the viewer will look where the characters in the composition are looking. So that's what's happening here. You're following these guys from left to right to finally this dragon. Even this orc is like pointing at the dragon, which draws your eye up his tail and to his mouth. This is a completely different philosophy. There's basically here it is in its full. It's very graphic. You've got the logo in the middle, which is okay, fine. This cool kind of gargoyle here, but it's very it's not your traditional painting. It's very graphical. It's very not distracting, but it certainly doesn't like bring you into the world. It's just a design. It's a very well put together design, but it's not the representative art that we are used to. But it looks great. This is the complete opposite philosophy of having the 4-panel or 3 or 4-panel composition. This is just one composition. And there's not a lot going on. There's a dragon. It's flying. You're don't have to worry about anything else. The only other thing that's happening is this little fire. The town that's on fire with obviously the dragon, and there's the dragon's got a poor little victim in his hand. You do have the branding on the bottom right and top left, which for me is whatever. This does show you the world of Dungeons and Dragons in a kind of a different way. Like you're not in the action. You are observing, which is a choice. 2020, the Curse of Strahd Revamped. Get it? Vamped because there's vampires. Because Strahd is a vampire. I think that's a joke. This is very departure from style. It's very clearly the quadriptych. Each one, I'm assuming these are all places that you would encounter in the setting. So very useful if you're a DM and you can just, instead of describing the place of this, you can just say, it looks like this, and point at the panel that you want. Each composition, like overall, the tone is very similar. It's all these kind of like dark purples, these washed out purples. A departure from the traditional, as I said before, the generic D&D style, which is good. I like to see that. This is the only one that has characters in it, the one on the far right, which is kind of a nice change. I appreciate this. I don't. Ravenloft is not my favorite setting, but if I was a player, I'd go, oh, this is intriguing. It's putting me in the world. It's setting the tone. It's putting them in the world. It's drawing me in, even though it's like 4 different drawings. But I think that's kind of a strength for this one. This is probably my favorite one. I'm just showing this low res so you can see how the panels work individually. But again, the same kind of philosophy. This is also by Greg Rutkowski. Fantastic work. Again, you're objective. You're pulled back from the world, but you can see it. You can see the world and you go, oh, I want to go there. Oh, what's over there? That's interesting. You can imagine wanting to travel to these places. My favorite part of this is, God, look at how painterly this is. It's wonderful. I do believe this is a real painting. I think most of what we've seen so far after 3rd edition, after 4th edition is probably digital. I'm not sure about Greg Rutkowski's his technique, how he does it. I think he might do it digitally and then paint over, like, project it onto a canvas and do the actual painting over top of the. But yeah, transitioning from one end of presumably like the middle of a continent, over the mountains and over to the sea, which is just stunning, breathtaking. This is for the wilderness kids, so it totally makes sense that you're seeing, like, here's all the wildernesses. Here's the outside world of Dungeons and Dragons. So I think for that, I think it does everything it needs to do. On the other hand, here's another Greg Rutkowski. This is 2021 Dungeon Kid. Here's the inside. Now you're going into the mountain. Now this is for me. My preference, I'm much more of a let's get into the dungeon and kill the monsters and get their stuff than the open sandbox world. Although Dark Sun does that for me when I do want an open world. But yeah, because I've been playing since 1985, so I'm very much let's explore some dungeons. You can see, although it is one cohesive painting, it's like it's one piece. You can see the different tableau, is that the right word? The different panels. Each one is its own composition within the 4-piece composition, which is beautiful. Again, I love the painterly style. You can like see the palette knife marks on it almost. It's fantastic. It's like Bob Ross in the dungeon, which is a great show that I'm trademarking here and now. Fantastic. Can't say. Maybe it's my second favorite. Here we have 2022 Dragonlance Shadow of the Dragon Queen. This is an interesting mix of representative and abstract because it's so stylized. First of all, it's got these frames on the outside. Yeah, it's definitely setting a tone for like, is this the campaign we're gonna be playing in? Excuse me, Dungeon Master. Hello, what? It's got just all these dragons attacking a town and just burning it to the ground. And what's over here? Yeah, demons of some kind. These poor people are in trouble, and it's saying to me, well, as the hero, if I'm playing good guys, which traditionally, you're like, oh snap, we got to go do something. This is Jedd Chevrier. This is another Spelljammer, and this does it for me. This is a wonderful composition. The tone is it's got these lavenders and these whites and these kind of it's great. It's fantastic. Again, somewhat objective, but you want to dive further. You're like, this is an interesting place. I want to find out what's going on. It's evocative. It's got a lot of ambience. You can see these interesting creatures. Like, what's the deal with this giant, what looks like petrified, falling apart Colossus, Titan of some kind? Astral Dreadnought, is that what they're called? Here's an example of what I would not do. And I don't blame the artists. Again, we see these two side panels. If you're looking at this composition as a whole, obviously it's not going to work because it's not really a triptych. It's disjointed. The two side panels have nothing to do with the main panel. Maybe that's the point. Again, maybe these are two locations in the Tyranny of Dragons campaign adventure that presumably you encounter close to the beginning. Technically, it's well done. It's a very good. Oh, there's a little. Looks like a white dragon in the background here. Again, you have this weird dead white space with the text. It's a no from me. Okay, so and here is another example of what I would not do. Here's 5, which is. You can see, so the middle one is split right in the middle. But again, it's going to be slightly bent. I don't need to see the name of the adventure I'm playing on the Dungeon Master screen. Nah, get rid of that. and then these 5 disparate vignettes, which in and of themselves, interesting art-wise, and the little border on the bottom, it's a choice I would not make. There's a lot of there's interesting things happening, but as a Dungeon Master screen, no, it's a no. So now the moment you've all been waiting for, the new Dungeon Masters DM screen, 2024 edition. This is illustrated by Joy Ang. As a piece of art, I like it. It's very, I give Wizards of the Coast a lot of flack, both in D&D and Magic the Gathering for kind of having, it's evolved a more homogenous style over the years. But sometimes it breaks out of that. And I think that's, in this case, they have done that well. It's an interesting composition. It reminds me of like ancient Egyptian iconography. Like you've got your scarab beetle in the middle with the wing. Oh, I might just have to, let me. You would have your scarab, and then you would have your wings. I'm drawing right on I'm not even on its own layer. But that's kind of like the vibe that I'm getting. And then the kind of the static, walk like an Egyptian kind of side. Obviously the proportions are correct and everything. It's a little cartoony. But it's an aesthetic choice that, like I said, I appreciate them trying new things, going in a little different direction. All these characters are interesting, but like I would expect these characters to be like in the player's handbook of like, here's the character choices. Here's, what you can make. I don't expect to see them on a Dungeon Master screen. I want to see the world. I want to see the place that I'm going into. This basically looks like an ad for D&D. So what did we learn from all these? For me, there are 3 pillars, I guess you would say, that makes a Dungeon Master screen strong from an artistic perspective. It should be, number 1, subjective. It puts the players in the driver's seat as opposed to objective, where you're looking at stuff that's happening to someone else. Number 2, it's evocative. It draws you in. There's like a mystery. You look into the art and you say, ooh, what's behind that door? What secrets does that character have that I can get? Number 3, just visual appeal. Composition is nice. It's well rendered. It's stylistically appealing. And for me, this new 2024 Dungeon Master screen hits one of those 3. It's the composition. It's appealing. But it doesn't hit the first 2, which I think are equally important from a player perspective on this side of the screen. That's my analysis of the new screen, and I hope you've enjoyed this. Look back at the previous screens. If you think I missed something important, please, by God, by Orcus or Hieronymus or whoever, write it in the comments. Let me know what you think I got completely wrong, and we can discuss. Maybe civilly, maybe not. So do the liking, do the subscribing, and check out my other videos. If you want to check out my art, what have I done? Why do I have opinions about art? Check out torenatkinson.com and see the artwork that I've done for TSR and Wizards of the Coast and many other wonderful independent gaming companies over the years. Check out my videos on the Dungeons and Dragons cartoon. As a storyboard artist, I react to those. So that's pretty sweet. And then every Sunday, I do live streams of 20-minute monsters. So with that, I will see you next time on the internet.